So next, we're going to get into partnership in action, and what we've done is we've put together a panel from a regional perspective around Sacramento, business and industry folks, educators, and Bob's going to come back up on stage, Bob Swartz. He's going to talk to the panel and ask them some questions. So come on up, Bob. So let's welcome Bob back.
Well, I think they were trying to fix the other one. Yeah, so actually, why doesn't the panel come on up too? Take your seats, and we'll get started. I think, as we've heard both from the opening panel and from Russ's comments, obviously, there's just been a ton of work that's gone on here over the years with the California Partnership Academy program, the more recent linked learning investments, the SB 70 and 1070 work engaging the community college system along with the K-12 system. But the challenge, at least as I see it, is to kind of move from the projects to the creation of real systems. But I thought that it might be helpful for us just to have a bit of a discussion with some folks who are directly engaged in partnership programs here in the region. And I'm delighted that Russ and his colleagues have recruited these half dozen people in pairs, if you will, educator and employer, to have this conversation. And what we're trying to glean from this is both we're going to start with brief descriptions of each of the three partnerships represented here, then talk a bit among ourselves around what some of the challenges have been, and how at the local level people have kind of resolved those challenges, what some of the learnings have been, and then begin to shift to thinking about, okay, with a new $250 million fund, how do we begin to kind of scale up this work, how to engage more employers in this work, how to build partnerships that actually bring higher education and K-12 and employers together to the same table, which has been the kind of theme of much of the morning. As you can see in your program, we have Annette Smith-Doring from the Sutter Health and her partner on the school side, Wes Muller, who directs the Oakmont Health Academy, Wendy Fukumaki, Community Relations Director from PG&E, and her partner, Dave Yaroshek, who directs the Choices New Academy in Foothill High School. And we have Susan Wheeler from I guess it's called SMUD, Sacramento Municipal Utility District, and Matt Turkey, the principal of the School of Engineering and Sciences here in Sacramento. So where shall we begin? Let's start at this end. So Wendy, go for it.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Wendy Fukumaki. I'm with Pacific Gas and Electric, and I am in the Community Relations Department. And we are very proud to have 5 California Partnership Academies. We call them the New Energy Academies. And the program is now in its 4th year and really hitting its stride. And just to give a little background on why PG&E as an employer got involved, first and foremost, we see it as an investment in education. That's one of our core areas of focus for philanthropic giving. Another area is the environment, and one other is economic community vitality, which is job creation. So actually having the academies helps us fulfill all 3 areas. It's an investment in education. It helps to educate young people to know about the impacts of what they do on the environment and help them to learn about renewable energy and different forms of energy. And ultimately, we believe it will result in jobs in the green tech sector, as well as a better understanding of jobs, maybe more traditional jobs in the utility sector as well, too. So the 5 academies are, there's one in Sacramento here, Bakersfield, Fresno, Stockton, and Berkeley. And we just saw our first class of graduates this past June, so we had about 144 graduates. And on exit surveys, we believe that there are about 85% of them that had indicated they were planning to go on to community college or 4-year, and 80% of them indicated that they might consider a major and studying something in environmental sciences or engineering or something STEM related, and might consider a career in green tech or traditional utility jobs. One other reason that, and not an insignificant one, that we started these academies is that our company also has a aging workforce, as many other industries have as well too. We have every day a larger percentage of employees that are retirement eligible, so it's also important for us to proactively develop a pipeline of future employees, and we think investing in them at a young age is a good way to do it. And I think I'll pass it over to Dave, who represents Foothill High School, and he can share with you his perspective from the classroom.
Yes, thank you. So one of the things that we've appreciated about PG&E partnering with us is really the amount of freedom we've had developing curriculum and the program itself, and the fact that they've been able to adapt basically their vision to 5 very different high schools throughout the state, and finding a way to basically meet what their corporate needs and desires and wants were with the individual needs and desires within our very different districts. And said just the amount of support we've gotten from them has been great. Knowing that we have a corporate sponsor with us really makes a lot of the decisions that we make a lot easier. Knowing that we have someone we can talk to and when we need help, particularly when we're talking about career development or other sorts of things. And then just being able to know about, just being educated about what sort of needs are out there now in the business world. And that was the first year we met with them was probably the biggest eye-opening experience that we've had, is getting out of the classroom and finding out, well, what sort of things does an employer like PG&E need? What are the different job and career opportunities that are there? And it's much broader than what we would have initially thought. And so kind of tailoring our programs to meet the much broader needs than just the narrower needs that might perhaps be laid out within the specific career pathways. So knowing that there's a large amount of different opportunities within their particular business field has really been important for us to know.
Thank you both, Wendy and Dave. As we move on to Susan, are you going to do the honors, or is Matt? But before you do, I just a couple of questions that I'm likely to want to ask you to think about or respond to as we move through. One is the one issue that often comes up in these partnerships is how important it is to get sort of garden variety classroom teachers some exposure to the work world. And often people use externships or other opportunities to get teachers into workplaces, and I'm wondering whether or not any of you have adopted that strategy. And then secondarily, I'm obviously very interested in knowing what kinds of opportunities do students themselves have in these partnership programs to actually get some workplace exposure and learning. I'll come back to you guys and give you a chance to respond, but let's just get the descriptions of the other programs on the table first. Yeah, so Matt, go ahead.
Okay, hi, I'm Matt Turkey. I'm the principal of the School of Engineering and Sciences here in Sacramento. We are a little bit different from other schools in that we actually start at 7th grade and then go through to 12th grade. So as a career pathway, it is a little bit different getting kids into engineering and sciences at 7th and 8th grade. We do feel it's pretty important though. So the important things which we want our students to experience, we need to align those things with what industry and post-secondary need. What we heard today, things like the skills gap. Okay, so if students are leaving K through 12 education, they have a skills gap. They're going into remediation when they hit post-secondary education, or when they're applying for those jobs in industry and they don't have the skills which they need. We have to align what we are doing at K-12 education, or within our school, 7 through 12, with those skills which are needed. So we do that in a variety of ways. First of all, it's very important for our students to have hands-on project-based learning, which is real-world and authentic. We think it's very important for our kids to have college and career exposure. And Again, building those college and career skills, things like the communication, the collaboration, the problem solving, things like that are super important. So a couple of examples of how we do that. We have integrated units within our school where basically it's a large project which will take somewhere in between, somewhere around 4 to 6 weeks to do. It goes across all of the different subject areas. And examples of this, so actually this afternoon our students are engaged in the Science and Engineering Fair. Now, in preparation for the Science and Engineering Fair, we actually have mentors from industry, for example, from SMUD, from Air Resources Board, who actually come and work with our students on their science fair project. We also have judges from industry who will be at our school this afternoon judging those science fair projects. Other things which we do, for example, we have the SMUD Solar Regatta, which is sponsored by SMUD, where basically our students have to design a boat. And so they use the skills which they've got from their engineering classes, and they actually have to kind of design a boat on CAD, computer-aided design. They have to use the knowledge which they've got about how photonic cells work. They have to basically work and collaborate in groups and say, okay, well, let's design this boat, okay? Let's give a presentation on photonic cells and how they work. And they give that presentation to a panel. On this panel can be members from industry, members from post-secondary, as well as teachers. And then that panel will decide, okay, well, which group gets to build that boat? And then one of those groups is chosen, and then the whole of the 11th grade then builds that boat, which then competes in the Solar Regatta, which is run here by SMUD. It's definitely real world. There is a definite kind of competitive edge to it, and there's a time on that. They have to finish by a certain time, which means that we have kids staying behind at school all hours working on this boat. That's real world, and they're getting real world skills there. And they've got to hope that when they put this boat in the water, it does what it should. It actually floats. It's kind of important. I am going to hand off over to Susan, who is going to talk a little bit about a partnership, well, various partnerships which we have.
Thanks, Matt. Susan Wheeler with SMUD. So as Matt mentioned, we have a number of different programs that we work in collaboration with both his school as well as other schools, but primarily our focus in the School of Engineering and Sciences. It's amazing what happens when you have 3 executives who get together over lunch. It's kind of scary. They all came to an agreement that we needed to focus on an investment in the future. So SMUD's in a similar situation as is PG&E. We have an aging workforce, and we're looking down the road in terms of how do we make sure that we have the right number of people with the right skill sets to fill our future workforce pipeline. And so as a result of that, we got together with Sac State and Sac City Unified School District to identify the need for an engineering academy, energy academy that would be focused on providing the skill sets for our future workforce. And in a really relatively short period of time, less than a year, we pulled together people from Sac State, from Sac City Unified School District, and from industry to develop a summer institute to help train the, I don't know if you call them the ancillary subjects, but the non-science subjects teachers, so the math teacher, the social science teacher, the English teacher, to help them understand the energy industry. We identified projects that they could use to integrate in their coursework to add the relevancy and tie their subject into kind of the energy theme. We did that for 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th and 12th grade. So they have projects in each of those years. And it was great. The teachers were energized, excited. Went back to their classrooms to implement what they'd learned in the summertime. But we did that, I'm amazed, because it took a very short period of time to do that. We've supplemented our work with School of Engineering and Sciences through, as Matt mentioned, contests like the Solar Regatta. We also have internships. And I just want to say one thing about the internships. While ideally it'd be great if we could have every one of our internships focused on a job in the energy sector, as an engineer or designing a hydro plant. We're a company that has positions in just about any career area. Probably the only thing we don't have is medical. So we have 25 internships that are made available to students, and we've had a number of students from School of Engineering and Sciences. And it's important for them to not only learn about our industry, so we do spend some time with them to make sure they understand that, but I think one of the things we heard today is it's important for them to learn what the work world's like, that it's important to show up on time, how to communicate with people that are not in their age group. And we've learned things from them as well. Believe me, we've learned a lot. But those are all positive experiences on both sides. We do have teacher externships, which I feel, it's great that we can reach 25 students a year, but if we can reach teachers, then we're reaching far more students. So to address that question.
Yeah, no, thank you. I do think the multiplier effect of investing in teachers is pretty obvious, and I've seen a couple of examples, one in Australia where a regional chamber of commerce sponsors, hundreds of teachers over the years, to come work at another work site and then bring that learning back and run professional development, sessions for the other teachers as well.
And just one more thing that I wanted to add, sorry. So the partnership that we have with Sac State and Sac City Unified School District is a partnership in many ways. We co-developed the curriculum as well as we funded the institute. So all the partners had some skin in the game. And I know Matt wanted me to hand him this before it goes the other way.
I just really want to underline you were talking about the importance of basically training of teachers. Okay, so most teachers, myself included, I don't know anything about the energy industry. Why would I? Okay, it's the same with our teachers. And so the institute which we had over at Sac State, which was a week long, where we had training for all of our teachers on the different parts of the energy industry, on things like renewable energies, was super important, because without that, we couldn't have developed the curriculum, we couldn't have talked to those experts, and we wouldn't be able to deliver that curriculum. Because of that, we actually have a kind of a stream of energy which goes through from 7th grade through up to 12th grade, where we can integrate different projects at every single grade level. And we can also include a lot of the speakers who we are working in the industry come to talk to our kids. So it's a pretty phenomenal kind of experience, I think.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So Annette and Wes, let's move from energy to healthcare.
I'm Annette Smith-Doring, Workforce Development Manager for Sutter Health in the Sacramento Sierra region. So not Sutter Health as a whole, but my region's pretty big with about 9 counties and 12,000 employees. We've been engaged in this work for about 15 years since I came on board at Sutter. That was one of my first assignments as the new person. We've invested about $40 million in community college education during that time, primarily in developing our talent pipeline as part of our workforce development strategy. Like SMUD and PG&E, we have an aging workforce. You guys all know the issues in healthcare, but we have the increased pressure of being required to provide additional care or more care to an ever-growing patient population. And so those are kind of this push-me-pull-you that we continue to see within our sector. For us, when kids are not ready for college, the primary point of entry for us is either a certificate or a 2-year allied health degree. You can find it at a local community college. There's great programs here locally in the Los Rios and other districts. But if a kid is not ready, if they're not college ready when they get there, they are actually not hitting that allied health program if they happen to persist through their remediation until they're about 26 years of age. So I have missed that window of opportunity to get them on board within our organization and actively participating in a healthcare career. As a society, we have missed their economic input into our communities because their earning power has been decreased during that time period. And I think we're seeing some of the effects of that as we look at disengagement from kids. One of the things that I've been able to observe personally over the last 15 years is how when kids are engaged in work-based learning, they are engaged in all of their academic subjects, whatever it is. And, we do job shadows, internships, you name it. We've brought teachers in. Because our environment is kind of unique in lots of ways, we actually provide subject matter experts to help inform the curriculum and go out to the teachers into the classrooms and provide that level of support. We don't expect every teacher that happens to engage with health to be an expert in all the aspects of healthcare. Like SMUD, when we bring kids in, a hospital is like a small city, right? And we have everything. We have plumbers and painters and HVAC people. We've got your nurses and physicians and everything in between. So we try and make sure that we're putting the kids in that broad spectrum of professions because they only know about pediatricians because they have one, and nurses, right? Because they see them on TV and they've watched ER or something. And so helping them understand all the opportunities that a healthcare career can have. We're actually kind of redirecting our focus a little bit, and while those things are all well and good, I really want to see us get more to a place where kids are graduating with a tangible certificate in 12th grade, and I think it aligns well with the talk that Dr. Schwartz and Hoffman gave us. And that's really something that not only are they getting the work-based learning experience, but they're getting something that they can use when they go to college or directly into a career, whatever that may be for them. Even if they choose not to continue in a healthcare career, we're 24/7, right? So wherever they went to college, if they need to work, they can find a job that pays pretty well while they can complete their education, whatever their pathway is. I brought Wes Mueller from the Oakmont Health Academy, who, as we talk about regionalization and sector-specific work, his academy is, to me, a role model for what a health academy should be. While there are others in the area, they don't quite meet the mark, and oftentimes they're an academy who's teaching health as opposed to teaching tangible skills that the kids can use. So.
It's a nice setup, Wes, so go for it.
Yeah, thank you. The Oakmont Health Careers Academy is a classic California Partnership Academy. It's 3 years, about 70 students each year, 3 academic subjects and 1 career technical subject. The progression of the technical work is that sophomore year we have an articulated class with American River College that's mostly around medical terminology, so students at least receive college credit for that in addition to the high school credit. But we're also talking a lot about job-seeking skills, professionalism, workplace interactions. The idea being that we're impacted. We have 100 students apply to us each year, 110, and we select 70 of them. Being a partnership academy, that means we have to look at-risk factors as a big part of that, so we aren't cherry-picking GPAs. Most important to us is that those students, we believe, will be good representatives. That I can take a student to an emergency room and leave them for 3 hours and know that at the end of those 3 hours, my partnership will still exist. So, because in the junior year, that is what happens. After students have some idea of what healthcare is about, we want to get them out into the workplace. And for 9 weeks on Wednesday morning, we have a double period, so it's a 3-hour block. We take students to local hospitals like Sutter, and for each of 9 weeks, they will see a different department. Pharmacy this week, emergency next week, nutrition, med-surg, oncology, so that they get a sense, hopefully, of what healthcare is beyond doctor, nurse. That nurse is not one thing, nurse is 40, 50 different things, probably more. And then based on that, we want them to choose an area of interest. And through an interview process with people from the hospital, then place students for kind of a mini internship at the end of that class. Now, during this class in the school time, they're learning vital signs, ambulation, patient transfer. Our students actually do a stool sample and a urinalysis on themselves. So they're learning the skills that they are actually going to be doing in the hospital and seeing in the hospital and learning the medical abbreviations, things like that. What follows in the senior year is a class that really looks at the government and political issues around healthcare. We call it MedTrends Seminar. And for students that choose an internship, the great thing about our partnership, and I think I'm unique among healthcare programs like ours that we've talked to around the state, I have never said no to a student that has asked for an internship. And that is really the hard part for a lot of programs like ours. And I think part of it is that we always think in our industry of hospitals is the place to go. And we don't think enough about the clinics and the other places. The great thing is I can go to the hospital with 1 van load of students and see hundreds of careers. Trying to drive 1 student to each little medical office, that just kills us. So it's the reason for our focus on the hospitals, but it's also kind of the problem that we have is we're looking at a very narrow piece of our sector. Internships can be in the summer where we have 100 hours typically, but great thing, Sutter stepped up last year and we had paid internships during the summer for the first time. So that was a wonderful step forward, and I think we had 20 students do that just out of our program. Not all of our students choose internship, not all of our students choose healthcare, but almost all of our students go to college. 88% of our students last year completed their A to G requirements. Remember, we're 50% at risk in the sophomore year when we select them. Thank you. The kind of the warning about that is thinking about pathways and getting these students actually to employment. My students were, those 63 students were accepted in colleges in 33 states. And about 1 in 6 left California because, especially with the nursing programs, they don't think there's room for them here. All of the nursing programs in California are heavily impacted. So that's a major concern for us in this sector.
Great. Thank you all. One thing you mentioned, Wes, I wanted to come back to, and that is you mentioned the kind of concurrent enrollment students taking high school courses and getting credit in both systems. Was that a challenge to work out, or what are the learnings from that? And I wonder whether others have run into this question.
Yeah, that was brand new. Actually, we just got that last year for the first time. It's 3 units, it's UC transferable, so that's the nice thing about it. We have actually applied for UC recognition for our other classes, but we haven't got it yet.
Yeah.
So,
Any of the other partnerships tried to do a kind of concurrent enrollment strategy? Yeah.
So through our relationship with Sac State, the students earn, is it three units? They're earning 3 units while they're part of the Energy Academy. So we actually had that agreement even before we started the academy.
Good, thanks. And Wendy, were you going to comment on that too?
Yeah, I was going to mention that I know for sure that one of our academies in Fresno, Edison High School, is a Lighthouse Academy, and they have an agreement with certain courses that their students take, and they get credit at Fresno City. And I believe others also either have agreements or in the process of building agreements.
Similarly, in the past, in my previous life in another academy, I also had an agreement with Sac State for units. But the other thing we currently have at our school is a certification program. So we're talking about national certification. We are an accredited facility for NCCR, which is a nationwide in the construction trade, particularly for basic skills and also for it's essentially an initial LEED certification for green building. So that's one of the things that our students will be able to earn at the end when they get through.
Great. So Wes, you mentioned your ability so far at least to deliver on the promise in a sense of an internship for everyone who wants it. I actually wanted to ask others about how you deal with this challenge of trying to scale up both internships and other forms of work-based learning. If you look nationally at the academy movement, for example, the National Academy Foundation, which is the biggest kind of national network, I know I've been on their board. They struggle with this issue of trying to figure out how to get to scale with work-based learning opportunities. So I'm kind of curious to know how any of you have addressed this.
For us, like I mentioned, we have a unique environment, and one of the challenges I run into in doing this work is that no 2 academies are the same. And the lack of standardization in what is taught and how it's taught is a challenge for employers. There's only one of me. I support a huge region, right? We do amazing works with half my assistant. But I need you, because there's, 35 districts in the greater Sacramento region. I need all of you to work together to figure out kind of what are the best practices, how do you replicate those across the region to make it easy for me to provide more internships. Right? If it was one-stop shopping for me through an intermediary or whatever other pathway, would make it easier for me to scale up.
And I would say, from our perspective, we have 25 paid internships every summer. We're only one company, and so I'm on a crusade to get other companies in the region, as Annette knows, to recognize the value that young people can bring to the workplace. I think in talking to employers in the region, one of the things that I see is they're willing to bring college students in, but they don't recognize that they need to make the investment earlier. And so I'm on a crusade to convince other companies that they need to offer high school internships by, showing that we've done it, what the value that it brings to us, so that we're not the only game in town.
Can I add something to
Oops, sorry.
Sorry, Matt. One of the things, though, that when I talk with other employers, because I'm with Susan on that crusade, is that they don't know how. They don't know how to access the school systems. They don't know who to talk to. Once again, that may be one employer that has multiple locations, but there's 35 districts, and how do I get to where I need to be? And quite frankly, we need to make it easy for them. So I think working through an intermediary, which is like one-stop shopping, it's one phone call, to say, I'm so-and-so employer, and I'd like to bring in interns, help me do this, I think would be extremely valuable.
Let me use that to put a plug in, as Nancy did this morning, for the session on intermediaries that Josh Bruno is going to facilitate this afternoon, because as we look around in all the regions we're working with around the country, this issue of you can't, at least in our view, you can't get to scale without some kind of regional intermediary that is both trusted by employers and trusted by schools. If it's individual employers having to do this or individual schools having to reach out, that can only get you so far. So this is, I think, a big need, and we look at the Career Pathways Trust as an opportunity to really figure out how at the regional level to kind of build the kind of structures that can support both schools and employers. And when I say schools, I'm meaning community colleges, obviously, as well. Yeah.
The internships is something which we find pretty difficult, to be honest, and it's something which I think employers have a sense of nervousness about letting a 16, 17-year-old kind of into their industry without knowing the competencies of that student. So what we're trying to do is kind of scale up with our industry partners, and so get our industry partners kind of invested in the school, coming in as guest speakers, first of all, getting to know some of our students, getting to know, our mission and what we're doing with students, getting to know what students can do, and then maybe building up to things like job shadows, so that then the employer can think, actually there's some kids here with real skills which we can really use. But it's difficult. We're building slowly.
I think that's a great point, because I think both on the student side and on the employer side, there needs to be a strategy, a kind of deliberate strategy that really is kind of sequential and builds on one another, and where you're not asking for internships maybe at the beginning, but you've got this kind of graduated strategy for getting more and more, building the relationship, and then being able to think about what's a sequence of opportunities for young people that's manageable by employers. Obviously, not all employers are going to be able to do the same thing and shouldn't be expected to do the same thing. But I also wanted to come back. I think one of the common denominators among your companies, and I think it's a really important point, is that your companies are large enough and diverse enough so that kids can get exposure, if you structure it, to a wide variety of careers inside the company. And I think, by the way, these are, if you think, we tend to focus much of our conversation around employers as if the only employers that matter are private sector. But the reality is that nonprofit employers and governmental employers, often the larger ones, also can expose kids to a wide variety of occupations. If you think about large school districts and the range of different kind of back office operations, if you will, that they afford, again, with a smart structuring example, you can get kids a lot of exposure. Wendy.
I'm really glad to hear that others struggle with internships as well, too, because I was kind of feeling like a slacker here. Because we haven't had too many interns. We have had about 6 or 7 out of Stockton, our academy there, because it happens to be located close to a PG&E training center, so it's been easy for the students to get over there. But in other areas, we might have had an internship available at one location, but it was too difficult for the students to get there. Yeah. So we are thinking more innovatively. We are thinking, like Wes was suggesting, that maybe we'll take students and bring a busload of them to come tour our facility and spend some time in various different departments for a day, so that they could at least get some experience and see the workplace and talk to real people who are doing the work. Another thing that we did that was kind of unique but gave them some learning experience too is that all the students went through a challenge last year. They competed against each other, all the 5 academies, to reduce their energy consumption on their campus. And then they also took their skills that they learned, doing energy audits, and we matched them up with a nonprofit that was in their community, and they went to that nonprofit to do an energy audit. So that was giving them real work experience doing that.
So obviously, one of the challenges we've just talked about is this challenge of internships and other forms of work-based learning getting to scale. Other challenges that you've run into in doing the work and your strategies for overcoming them? Any of you can think of off the top of your heads?
One thing that I learned really quick when I started working this is that, and someone mentioned it earlier, every academy is different, every school is different. So, while that sometimes can pose a challenge because you want to implement something for all of them, our solution to that was you just have to realize you can't sometimes. So we certainly allow them a lot of flexibility. We give them the option if they want to participate. And, we also have, I think, done a better job of listening to what they need as well, too, and treating each one individually.
I would say that there's some challenges around different worlds and understanding different worlds.
Yeah.
So, for example, my world in the existence of a school is quite different from Susan's world, in industry. It's quite different from the post-secondary world. And so, on the surface level, you have the lingo, which is used in each sector, which is a barrier. And so, first of all, we have to stop doing that. Okay, but underneath the lingo, we also have just the way that we do things is quite different. And so if you're talking to somebody from your own sector, then you talk the same kind of language. From a different sector, you need to understand that they're coming from somewhere different, and you need to kind of slow down and realize it's going to take some time to kind of get over some of those things.
Yeah, good.
To add to that, a lot of times we're a community-owned organization, and so our perspective is to be there for our community in many perspectives. And I think sometimes it's a challenge for our education partners to realize that we still have a business to run. And we want to be there for them, but a lot of times I think expectations of, they give us like a week's notice to show up at an event, and, we do our best to try to do that, but we have 2,000 people, and they have jobs that they need to do. So I think it's partly, to Matt's point, understanding each perspective. We try to do our best in supporting our partners in education, but I think there needs to be a recognition on the other side that, we have a business to run, but we also want to build a relationship. It's not just a lot of times. And I've been in other audiences where I've heard panels say this. It's not just a one-way street. It's not just give me, give me, give me. I've had the situation where I would love to get input from students, and we're putting marketing materials together, maybe for our internship program or whatever. And so I reach out to my education partners and say, can you please, have and I know teachers are really busy. I know they've got a lot on their plate. I teach college, so I get it. But I'm asking. I try to give them a month's notice. Can you give this to your students? Can we get input from them? They're our audience. Do the graphics resonate with them? When I don't hear anything back, I see some laughter and hear some laughter. When I don't hear anything back, that makes me feel like it's really a one-way partnership. And so, or it's not a partnership, it's one way. So, we're really looking to build long-term relationships. And so for me, that's a challenge.
I think there continues to be this divide, as we heard earlier, between education and industry, regardless of the industry, and that educators rightfully think they're there just to educate students, but the reality is they are there to provide our future workforce, whatever that means for people. And there continues to be this disconnect, not only in terminology as we heard, but just in practice. To Susan's point, I got an email at 11 o'clock on Friday. Now, I haven't been in my office in 3 days. I've been at meetings everywhere. I got an email at 11 o'clock on Friday morning asking me to sit on an advisory council for a school, I won't name names, at 8 o'clock Monday morning. I'm like, I didn't even respond. I mean, I was so irritated, quite honestly. As a professional, it's like to me, that shows that you do not respect me or my time or my organization who pays me to do a job, even if it's going to meetings on a regular basis. And so we really need to bridge that gap. If that was a small employer, they would not have been able to respond either. So I'm not really clear why we can't conduct ourselves kind of in a professional manner across the board. We want to engage. We have demonstrated our engagement in many different ways, but I think what happens is when those situations occur, then the message is that Sutter Health won't play with you in your sandbox, but that's not true. I just need you to play with me in a way where I can actually support you, help me, help you, kind of scenario.
So let me shift gears, if I can, and I'll just put the question out, and then Wes, make your comment, and then we'll come back around for just last comments. But given what you've heard today about both from the leadership panel and thinking about the kind of opportunities represented by the $250 million Career Pathways Trust, opportunities for beginning to help us both get to scale and address some of these problems, on a regional basis. What ideas do you have, or what are the implications for both scaling and sustaining the kind of work that you're all engaged in? So Wes, you can either take that one, or you can finish the challenges.
I was going to agree with Annette that the issues around communications.
Yeah.
And we have such different philosophies in the way that we approach work in the business world versus education. And it is so different. The way we think about time, that an employer may think that any time of the day is the same, but if you're going to work with my students that are juniors, it's 8 to 11, because that's when I have them in class, and getting them any other time of the day is really not an option. And so that our time constraints placed on industry is just an example of the kind of problems that we have. That point of communication, again, several of the conferences we've been to in the last couple of weeks that have been here in Sacramento, talking about regionalization, I'm still trying to figure out what that means. We are, Ken Robinson's book talks about middle-aged organizations, and that's kind of where we are. We've been around for 18 years. We like what we do. We're comfortable with what we're doing. And any time that we hear something new about regionalization or standardization, does that mean we have to be like everybody else? We think we're pretty good. We like what we do. And change is scary. And so just to get us over that hurdle, get us into a place where we can feel flexible about our program and not threatened, is the first thing that we're going to have to do as a program.
Point taken. I think that having been in an organization for a number of years that did regionalize, that whole storming norming phase is huge. And so within an organization, so I think across sectors and professions, I think that's going to be an interesting challenge. I have to give kudos to Senator Steinberg for pushing through this bill because it's something that we've needed for a number of years. I'm excited by the opportunity that's presented by the Pathways Trust and really helping foster the intersection between the workforce investment system that has resources available for some of this work, the community colleges that is educating 2 million of our students right now, and K-12, who has our talent pipeline. I'm hoping that the trust will, that the applications are regional in scope, that they create centers of excellence as opposed to, I don't have any interest in dumbing down any other program, and maybe raising the bar for all programs through a regional approach with an intermediary, and really making sure that each opportunity within that region makes sense. I don't think we need to have every single district maybe have a health academy, for example. I think if we have an excellent health academy in Roseville, is there a way that they can share that information and education with a health academy in Sacramento, right? Do we need to have separate entities and redundancies in every district? I don't think we do. I think we would be better served at spending the money more effectively and efficiently.
I feel like I'm hogging the mic.
No, we're just coming, please.
So to address Professor Schwartz's question about, I think you said you prefaced it with,
Opportunities.
opportunities. If we could dream, what we'd want. When I went to school, I didn't have a whole lot of opportunity to interact with people in other career areas. And how I ended up in the career area I have really no idea. But I think to provide the experience and exposure for as many students as possible, and even to help them form a connection with someone. So if we could use the money to invest in something, I would say maybe some type of mentoring, and maybe, in our perspective, again, we have people who have a job that they need to do, so for them to be able to go to schools on a regular basis, to develop an ongoing relationship is near impossible. So whether they form that relationship electronically, so we use technology to help students connect with business people, I think that would be fantastic. And maybe even a cascade approach. So business people who work with college students, who work with high school students, who work with middle school students, I think that would maybe kind of cover the sphere.
Great.
If we're still talking about scale and how to get things to scale, as a principal, it would be wonderful if we were handed some internships. I mean, I'm not going to say no. That would be great. I would worry a little bit about the kind of relationship with industry, because, I mean, one of the advantages of us doing it, I guess, on our own is that we have that relationship. But as I said, it is very difficult to do. And so I certainly wouldn't say no to internships handed. That would be very nice.
I guess if we're dreaming here, then I think what I think would be really helpful is really to have the resources to have a dedicated person to do the work of finding the internship opportunities, identifying mentors, creating the job shadowing program, and also maybe creating an alumni network too, so we can continue to stay in touch with the students as they move on. I think we show that we've been telling them while they're in their 3 years of the academy, that we're investing in you, we believe in you, and they graduate and then we don't talk to them any longer. And I think they probably could use continual encouragement, especially those who, for PG&E, if they've identified that they want to get into, the green tech sector or a utility job, that we can stay in touch with them. So having human resources to do that would be helpful.
I guess two things. One, kind of the challenge. I said one of the things I've learned, working with PG&E, is that there's not just one job that I'm training them for in the energy and utilities industry. That there's there's a whole branch of skills that they have to be good at, and kind of adapting my curriculum to that's been part of a challenge, making sure that they have both broad skills but also some very specific skills that they've learned. And I think one of the things that, if we're talking about things I'd like to see, I like the idea of a regional. Some kind of regional network where I can one-stop shopping, where I can go to find mentors or speakers or other resources from the community, from the business community, to come out to my school or work with my particular students. I also kind of like to see it go in the other way, kind of maybe a Match.com sort of thing with students, where I can post my students with their desires, with their skills, with their needs, for employers who then have opportunities they need to go fill. Be able to come back and say, so I don't have to try and make the job a little, kind of go from both sides, so that they're also looking at the same time that I'm looking for places to place students. Make it a little more of an open sort of a forum.
Great. Let me just make one comment on this regional issue. And here I'm speaking totally for myself, not for, I don't know exactly how the department or community college folks or others are thinking about it, but the challenge here, I mean, for example, if you look at the Doing What Works initiative of the community college system, they have divided the state up into 15 economic regions and done a fair amount of analysis of what the regional labor markets look like, what are the growth opportunities, et cetera, and they've built a kind of an infrastructure. Tim mentioned that if you look at the workforce system, there are 40-something WIBs. There are 50-something county school district offices. There are, I think, 72 community college districts. So you've got a lot of different structures out there. And I think part of the challenge is trying to figure out kind of what's a manageable unit. I would argue the 15 is too few. But if you could imagine, in conversation between community college leadership, workforce board leadership, and K-12 leadership, trying to figure out, how might we define a region that could really support where the kind of collaborative work that we are all advocating here, and where you could imagine creating, either from fresh or by building on organizations that currently exist, enough of a kind of intermediary structure to actually be able to address a lot of these issues that our panelists have talked about around kind of one-stop shopping, trying to figure out a strategy where the employers are getting coordinated responses, not requests coming from individual schools in an entirely uncoordinated way, and where you really can start to figure out how do we start building a pathways system that ultimately, I would argue, if you look at the data that I began my part of the presentation with, ultimately we need a system that actually is going to be a mainstream system that's going to need to serve, I would argue, most California young people. If we really want to make sure that young people are coming through the education system, coming out the other end with some kind of a credential that both has immediate value in the labor market, but where they've got a solid enough underpinning of skills to be able to continue on and get as much education as they want. And that's going to take, you can't get there from here without some broader kind of regional structure or regional strategy. The one reason in building the agenda that we left an hour for lunch was in the hopes that people would look around the room and find people not in their own organization or sector, but from their part of this region. And so we could, over lunch at least, begin to have some more informal conversations across the secondary, post-secondary, and across the education workforce divide. We're not going to structure that at all, but Russ, maybe you can give us marching orders for lunch. But before we do that, please join me in thanking this terrific panel.